Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes, to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together.
All right, there's this famous quote out there, and I believe it's from Tony Robbins, about the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. And the reason why I started with this quote today is because about a year and a half ago, I had a big question. And my big question was, how do I create this vision, this dream that I have for my family with now no longer being a teacher? My goal was to travel abroad, and prior, in the past was like, yeah, I'm going to go continue work at international schools. When I have my family, I'm going to bring them with me. But as we shifted, I say shifted, like with my husband and I, and me joining Peak, our digital web agency, about 2.5 years ago, the vision shifted because I was no longer in the schools, right? Now we were entrepreneurs. And it was like, how do I create this with my kids? How do I create this as an entrepreneur to go abroad? And not only that, was how do we also shift the focus from always having to think about how we're going to pay for things to really create true financial freedom? I mean, as Carol and I, as neuro coaches, we always, on the podcast, we're always talking about creating wealth. And how do you really create this freedom of wealth? Mm-hmm. Well, randomly, I'm on Instagram, and I'm not on Instagram very often, except when I'm on there, with the podcast. And here I have Tanessa, a good friend of mine who I've interviewed previously, and she's also been on this podcast in the past, talking about going to Panama with her 2 kiddos who are very similar age to mine. And at this moment, we started to reconnect and chat a lot more. I actually went on her podcast to interview her after they got back from Panama, because again, the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. So when you ask bigger questions, all of a sudden the brain starts working for you with the reticular activating system, and you start to find answers. So today, Carol and I are so excited to have Tanessa and Flynn here, because they have really, they're pioneers, and they're really totally changing the landscape of how a lot of people are making decisions, right? Living and leading their lives. And Carol and I are so excited, obviously, to talk wealth, to talk about freedom, and to talk about, obviously, for them to share their journey, their story, and what they're up to creating today. Because it really is, the risks that they're taking and their vulnerability and honesty through what they've also got as their Freedom Diaries to be able to shift things. And, I've also had an honor to be one of their beta testers in a program that they are, I believe once this is live, it will have been launched. I know you guys are launching beginning of June, but I got to be a beta tester. So I've got to be personal and intimate with them for the past 6 months or so. And then Tanessa and I have known each other for, I think, almost 3 years now. So I know Carol's excited to dive in and uncover and just like unpack really what you've created, the mindset shifts that you underwent, and also just like how basically you, listener, you can create exactly everything that they've created.
Yeah.
Too. So welcome, Tanessa and Flynn.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. What a flattering start. Wait, we've loved having you in our environment. I got to say, like, from having known you, you guys are such the people that ask the right questions, like what you were saying. And it's like, you don't just ask the question, you like grab the answer and run at it. And it's so fun. It's like, here's what we did this week. Here's what we did the week after. And we're just like, people that take action. These are our people. We loved you guys as soon as we met you.
It's so awesome to have you guys here. I'm super excited. Share a little bit more about yourselves. What would you like us to know? I'm so curious.
So yeah, my name is Flynn. I was a mechanic for 10 years. So basically, I lived my whole life an employee, and there's always that in my head. There's got to be something more for me, right? So I've dabbled in like different businesses.
Network
marketing, life insurance, and all that stuff. But like, what kind of got us to it is the investing. Like that kind of worked out for us because we just get it. So after our investment portfolio reached cover our expenses, I was able to quit my work. That was 3 years ago, 2022.
Yep.
And then yeah, so ever since then we've just been traveling and kind of doing things on my own terms, like learning new things and just playing around with the kids and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
What about you?
yeah, it's been awesome. My name is Tanessa. I had a decade-long health consulting business, I loved it. It was successful. But it was something that I was like doing as well as being a mom. I had the kids at home and he was working full time. And there's always that juggle of like, okay, we've got nap time and one day of childcare. So it was like back to back to back to back to back calls and trying to, fit life in all of the pieces. And I remember once we started doing this investing strategy, which we're probably going to go into today, I imagine, it started to become this moment where we're like, what would life be like if we didn't have to work for income anymore? Like, what would that be like? And so we started working towards that. And it was literally last July, I decided to stop marketing my business. And naturally, it's all the way until April of this year. It's finally come to a close and I'm no longer an entrepreneur of that business. And as I was starting to let go of that, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with all my time now? And that's when I picked up writing. And it was something I did as a child and all through my teens. And now I write a blog on Substack called the Freedom Diaries. And that is just basically my outlet to document what this life has been like for us, how we've created it, and what it will look like over the years coming forward so that we can remember it too.
I love that. And what is the fire movement that you guys mentioned or that you've been associated with that word? Would you share? I know what that stands for, but are you guys heavily involved in that as a movement?
You know what's interesting is I have a blog article in draft right now on what we do and how it's much different than the FIRE movement. So FIRE, if anybody's listening, it's like, what is that? It's an acronym that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And the goal is if you save up this nest egg of 1.5 million or 2 million, you can then theoretically live off 4% of that income every year for the next 25 or so years until you pass. And Flynn and I, like, that's something we'd heard about, but when we did all the calculations, we're sitting there and I'm like, okay, if we even need to get to 1.5 million or 2 million, if we want to just, live a more cushy life, oh my gosh, we're going to have to be like scrimping and saving for the next like 16 years.
Like at least 50%.
We're going to be nearly 50. Our kids will be grown and we'll have spent all that time working. There has to be a way to do this in which I can live now. And that's what we ended up finding is the way we invest. Most people do this. I'm going to invest in a stock, and let's just use Apple as an example. And Apple is going to grow in value. And then one day I'm going to magically predict a time when it's perfectly the best time to sell. And then I'm going to live off of that money and hope I don't need it when the market drops or inflation's gotten higher or whatever. But the way we started looking to invest was like, wait a second, we can invest in a fund that'll pay us cash flow now to replace the income from our job. So how it contrasts is we get freedom way sooner than if we'd have gone the traditional FIRE route. So yes, we're all about the financial independence. Yes, we got to retire early, but I feel like the way we did it was not what, if you were to Google FIRE, it's not what you're going to find. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough, especially if you're working. 'Cause when you start your career, you start like a low income, right? And now if you start a fire movement from that early on, that's gonna be tough because you got to save a lot of money to reach your financial number. But so there are a lot of it is a good movement, but I think there are some flaws, and then we didn't like that as much, so we kind of had to like modify it to our own lifestyle.
Yeah, and the kind of interesting thing about the FIRE movement is I saw this quote about it the other day, which I was like, wow, that's interesting. And it's the FIRE movement has like this idea of enough for me. I'm going to invest, and then the goal is to live off of that. But the way we were seeing it is like, okay, one, what if you outlive your money? Two, what if you need to withdraw it when the market is in a correction? We correct like every couple years, there's recessions. You don't know when you're going to need that money. And I have a very strong belief that in our lifetime, AI is going to solve some of our aging problems that were like not problems necessarily, but when we reach a certain age, our body breaks down, it no longer works, and we end up dying. But I feel that AI is going to extend human life in our lifetime. Maybe it's only 10 years, maybe it's 30 years, but everyone's planning to only live to 80 to 90. What if we all live to 120?
Yeah.
Right? So we were thinking of that. And then the last thing we were really thinking is the way that we invest now, you preserve your capital. So I
Yeah.
live off the income. So the beautiful thing is when we pass, we are passing an income generating machine on to our children. And it's not like what was left after we lived off it. Like we get to live off it and pass a fully functional cash generating machine to our kids. Like what a gift. And especially if they steward it well and we raise them to respect money and understand how to maintain it afterwards. Like
Yeah.
that was a big vision for us.
That is really exciting and beautiful. And what you guys are talking about, something I say in to my clients and in my master class is um, the poor tend to think in terms of bills, paying bills. The middle class tend to think in terms of um, getting good credit in order to buy liabilities or consume things that are not really to their benefit. Whereas the wealthy think in terms always of multiplying. And I can see how you guys have that wealthy thinking and that wealthy operating of, and this is something that I really speak into. We didn't grow up learning how to think wealthy, how to operate like the 1% do. And it's one of the things I love sharing universal wealth laws in regard to principles of wealth because it is really a different way of thinking. And the fact that you're preserving capital and you're accelerating what is traditional, even in the FIRE movement, and you're not scrimping and you're living life, you're living it to the full and abundantly while you're also producing for your children, for your future, and for your current goals. I'm loving this. I think it's just really such a beautiful way to do things. And the Freedom Diaries that you write, okay, I'm subscribed. I'm all in. They're really great.
Thank you.
Um, but yeah, would you speak into that in terms of how you've seen your mindset shift over time and what you tend to encounter with people in terms of the way they're thinking about finances in general?
Do you want me to go first or you?
Go for it.
Okay. For me, I think there's a couple big things that we've noticed that, especially because we've been around so many people having these conversations. Like a really big one is this perception that investing is gambling. And that if you put money into the stock market, what if I lose it? And the way I look at it is like, well, if you're getting stock picks off of YouTube or your friend, or you picked it up at the hairdressers, you probably don't actually know what you're investing in, right? And so there are ways that you can invest. Nothing is ever risk-free, but there are smart ways you can mitigate risk, whether that be through creating a diverse portfolio, whether that be through understanding what you're investing in, how it generates its capital, whether it's looking at past performance. Like these are all ways that you can do that. And then one of the fascinating things along that, like, what if we lose money in the market, is I love to answer that with the way that we invest almost calms the nerves around that. So think about this. Like we have just gone through a market correction in the last couple months since we are recording this in late May. And anybody who is investing in typical growth funds likely saw a 15 to 20% drop in their portfolio, which thankfully rose back up quite quickly. Not always, doesn't always do that. But while our portfolio went through that experience, we generated $8,000 a month for February, March, April, and May. So February, March, April, May, that's 4 months. So we made $32,000 and we're just at the same spot everyone else is at now. So the beautiful thing about getting these dividends is that they allow us to still continue our cash flow while our portfolio rides the roller coaster, just like everyone else's does. So it's allowed us to be able to stop clicking buttons, sit on our hands, breathe, and collect cash. That's definitely a big mindset.
Watching the paint dry.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one mindset maybe you can speak to is you've had friends with the more research.
I was going to talk about like they're more focused on like trading their time for liabilities.
Yeah.
So like there's like this is like one of the mind shifts that I had, and what I've noticed from most people is what they spend their money on a lot of liabilities,
Yeah.
expenses, and they don't spend enough money on assets.
Yes.
And then 'cause for us, look, when I found out like you can use your assets to pay for expenses, that kind of shifted my whole thinking about just
Mhm.
investing and money thing and yeah, money in general. Because like
Do,
when I learned that,
do
um,
you have a good example of an asset that you would use to pay for your expenses?
yeah. So for example, like a stock, like a fund that we have that we are invested right now, like a USCL.TO. It's a ticker. So basically we bought some shares from that, and then that pays us monthly.
Yeah.
And then that pays that cash pays our travel fund, gears or whatever, like
Everything,
everything.
groceries,
Yeah, yeah,
rent,
exactly.
everything.
So instead of me working, as a mechanic, I traded my time, work on cars, and then I get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and then that's what I use, to spend on expenses. But with this one, it's just a one-time thing, or I can build it up, buy the asset, and use that asset to pay for expenses, and
Yeah.
that shifted my whole thinking on
Yeah.
money.
I think one of the things that we did, which was speaking to that point of looking at the difference between assets and liabilities, is we had this mindset shift. And not everyone's going to agree with this. This is just something that worked for us, that a house is not an asset, it's a liability.
Right.
Because the way you can tell is if you stopped making payments on it, would it be taken from you? Or would
Hmm.
it put money in to your account or take it out? And so for most of us, if we stop paying our rent or we stop paying the mortgage on a house, they'll
Yeah.
come and take it from you. It's
Yeah.
not an asset. I mean, it'll appreciate in value as the actual house, but it is something that is um, causing you to have to keep those payments. So what we did was we actually sold our townhouse and we net profited 400,000 from that. I think we put all but like maybe 12,000 into this investing strategy we did. And everyone thought we were insane, but this is what we ended up doing is we took something that was a liability that was costing us money every month and we turned it into an asset that started producing cash flow for us. And so everything we look at, we're like, is that an asset or a liability? What's paying for it? So now we're at the point where we have assets paying for all of our expenses so that we no longer have to rely on trading our time for income
Yeah.
in order to pay for those.
I
Those are
think
the
this is so important because, again, it's the quality of the questions, isn't it, Alex? I mean,
Mhm.
we don't even realize what kind of questions to ask, until we've had somebody educate us. And there are things you can do to help your home to become an asset, such as utilizing in the US the Augusta rule, or maybe renting out a portion of your home and turning
Yeah.
it into something cash flowing. But it's really about shifting the way we think about funds and how everything can be in one way or another multiplied. And I really love what you shared about your cash flowing investments because with the death of my husband, we were international in 6 countries at that time. I had to become an instant financial expert. I didn't have a family office. I didn't have an estate manager. It was me and me. And so one of the things that I did along the way was I knew to make investments, but I didn't know how, and I was having to learn all the different types. And I didn't do cash flowing investments. I did the watch the paint dry forever investments and made plenty of mistakes along the way. But through that process, that's now why I'm able to help people just like you guys are in understanding the power we have and what's available to us to begin to put to work and to begin to have assets that produce cash, and to look at things in terms of assets because true wealth is having assets.
Mhm.
Money or income is a portion of wealth, but it is not wealth. If
Hmm.
you just got money coming in or income, that's not what wealth is. Wealth is having assets that produce ongoing income and cash flow for you. And I think those definitions are really important to help us understand what we can do, the steps we can start to take, what you're describing. So when you are writing your blog, the Freedom Diaries blog, and putting the information out there, I've noticed that you guys are really great about your transparency and about what you're doing and why it's working. How did you come to that place of being able to be put it out there for all to see and for all of us to learn from?
Yeah. Do you want to tell why we got inspired to be transparent?
You go ahead.
Yeah, so we first heard about cash flow investing on YouTube, and it was because someone, the channel that we saw, they showed their whole portfolio and like what it looked like on the inside and how much they had and how much it was making. I feel like wealth is one of those interesting conversations in which there's so much awkwardness in talking with it about
Yeah.
people. And even if like people want it, it's like this, you can't know how much I make per year. You can't know how much I have invested. And like if that's someone doesn't want to share that, all the power to them. But I felt like in a position of leadership where we began on this journey because of someone else's transparency, like it
Mm.
only made sense for us to show the inside, like pull back the curtains and be like, this is how we did it. So that like if someone was like, could I do that? They could easily be able to see in each of those spots. And then I think like beyond just the transparency with our numbers and our financials is like the transparency of the life that we're living, although as glamorous as it could look on an Instagram feed,
Yeah.
it's tough. Like we've had moments where we're like questioning if we want to do this anymore, if it's too much to travel, if it's we want a
Yeah.
home base more than we want to travel. Negotiations we've had to make with retirement and what that means for us and do we really want to retire and what does it mean to come out of retirement. And so I think
Mm.
I just for me like I wanted to make sure people knew that I still struggled like a real human and
Yeah.
I still had hard days and I still doubted myself and I still cried and I still felt shame and I still felt lonely. Um,
Yeah.
and the transition I had to go through in letting go of a decade-long business when my identity was so wrapped up in this is proof that I'm doing things in the world. And how do you just like not move into something else, just let go?
Mm.
And
Mm.
dealing with the shame that came with that and the sadness and the feeling like, what did I do it all for? And what if I change my mind? And what if this doesn't work? And that was a sure thing. And like having to let go of something good
Yeah.
to grab something great. And so I just
Mm.
thought, like, the reason I created the Freedom Diaries in the first place was to I remember thinking like it was June, it was actually a full year ago this Sunday that I started writing. And I remember thinking like, hell, if our next 4 years are anything like the last four, what we've created, like I want to document it. And it was never supposed to be it was never supposed to have picked up the way it did. And I think like it's always having to check myself of like, you're writing for you. You don't need a fancy title. It
No
doesn't,
thanks.
yeah, like I've really had to check myself,
Yeah.
like to not turn it into the online marketing. Like I already wrote about finance. Now it has to be about
Mm.
emotion. Like I'm trying to just what it's for me. And if people want to come along,
Yeah.
they're more than welcome. And I think that transparency has what is actually now that we are choosing to do something with it has created such bonds with the
Yeah.
people that are joining our world
Yeah.
right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, so for me, like I like transparency whenever I see someone and then they're transparent about anything,
Yeah.
I'm all for it because I'm all about the realness, especially with AI these days. Like
Yes.
I like the raw and stuff. So when I started sharing like on my Instagram, I was sharing the highlights, but I failed to share where I came from. And then as soon as I started sharing about, when I was a mechanic, and people were able to relate to me, and
Yeah.
they were able to connect with me even more,
Mhm.
and that just shows the power of transparency. And I'm not an expert. I'm not a perfect person. I came from a struggle too, and I had to
Yeah.
learn all these things. So, like transparency is a really powerful
Thing.
thing.
Well, I think that's one
It
thing that
is.
actually I don't
Wow.
even think you talk about enough is like I come from, the middle class. Like I went to university, I had a townhouse, like I'm an entrepreneur. Like that's not entirely relatable to a lot of people because but his start is so much different. Like he moved here as an immigrant with parents that conditioned you in a way with money that wasn't helpful. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so I came here when I was 12. So basically my dad told me to, get a good job, get some good benefits. And he was okay with money, but not the money advice I would listen from. But he taught us just, you gotta have a good job, good benefits. And I saw that, like, I saw his life. It was great. I was very grateful for him, but I saw his life. I just kind of didn't want to follow. So I kind of had to kind of switch that around and learn something else. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it's just he's overcome so much from like
Oh,
just thinking debt was normal and being in
yes. Yeah.
debt when we met and like he bought a motorcycle on a line of credit.
Yeah.
Like it was just like he went from like literally having no financial knowledge, consumer debt, working like a full-time job and thinking that that was what life was going to be for him. And then it was us getting to work together and like vision and dream together is
Yeah.
just watching him come out of his shell and
Yeah.
learn and like completely transform in the
Yeah.
10 years we've been together has just been the coolest thing to see. I just think he has the most relatable, real story for the person who
Mhm.
listens to this and is like, I didn't grow up with that advantage. I didn't have a business. I
Yeah.
didn't all of this. Like you look at Flynn
Yeah.
and he has done that.
Yeah.
And so I think
Before I
he's
met Tanessa, I was in debt. I was like 15,000 in debt,
yeah.
right? So I have
Wow.
to clean that up.
Yeah.
Where,
Well,
where did you
and
immigrate from?
From the Philippines.
Okay.
From the
Wow.
Philippines.
And
Yeah.
and so also that in your background, a completely different culture, different way of operating and
Thinking.
doing things to stepping into a world that, for us, like I think about it in terms of currency exchange and what is a common salary in another country or a common income is here is very different, right? Depending on whether you're in the Canadian dollar or the US dollar or whatever you may be in. But those cultural, being an immigrant in a foreign country myself, those cultural changes have big significance. And I know, Alex, I'm so excited for you to be able to experience. Where are you guys now, by the way?
We're in Vancouver for the next 2 months. We're just at
Okay.
home, seeing family. Kids need to see the grandparents.
Yeah, and what's your next step? Do you know where you're going to be stepping out to next?
Yeah, we're gonna go Bali. We're leaving on August
Oh,
6th.
that's right. You
Yeah, we're
said
gonna go to
that.
Bali for 4 months, and then after that we'll come back for Christmas to see family again, and then I think we're looking at Vietnam in
Vietnam
January
for 3 months.
for 3 months.
Wow, that sounds
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah,
know
Yeah.
the beaches on Vietnam are supposed to be absolutely phenomenal. And then there's the pho. I love the pho. So,
the fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know. That's been the most fun country to research. All the time I'm like, did you know Vietnam was like this or had this? Like it's been such a wonderful surprise. I'm looking so much forward to the next like eight. We're practically spending 7 of the next 8 months in Asia. So
wow.
I've never been. He was brought up there,
I've never
different
been to.
country still, but like it's going to be a whole
Yeah.
like a cool experience. Like I mean, my Spanish, we've been only Spanish speaking country so far, and I can speak like get by Spanish. And so this will be going, and we have no idea. So it's going to be a lot of Google Translate.
It's going to be really disorienting for the brain until
Yeah.
you get, some grounding there with what's next step. Like I always think about that. There's places in Asia I want to go, and I'm like, if there's not any kind of English translation, you better have a really good
well, so
translator.
with Google Translate, there you like when we were in Asia, right? You could like take a snapshot of an image and it will translate for you. Then I like
Yeah.
I've been to both Bali and Vietnam and survived easily, right? It's just
Yeah.
having, a driver or people to like support you in along the
Plus
way and like
nowadays we have a
everything.
Google
Yeah.
Translator.
Yeah,
so
like that's
easier.
massive. Like it makes a
Yeah.
huge difference when, like with the technology, like to support in the on the spot, right? Like
Mhm.
traveling many years ago, very, very different. Like you get to
Yeah.
like studying on the train, like, okay, how do we say these basic, things in the country that we're traveling to? So yeah, it's traveling today is very different than traveling many years ago with technology,
Yeah.
which is so exciting for you guys and your kiddos. I wanted, because of course I know you guys really well, and I know that there's something that I believe is really support you guys so much, obviously, like in Flynn's journey and just you guys as a couple and what you've created, which is your money dates. So I'm wondering if you can
Yeah.
speak into that a little bit more about what your money date is, what it looks like. I mean, I said to you a text the other day, like we had an impromptu money date, right? Because I like, especially for the listener, we're, in a relationship, right? Like
Yeah.
it's one thing to do this as like as a single person, but it's very different when you tie in now somebody else and somebody else's beliefs and someone else's growing up and relationship with money. And now of course, you've got family to think about as well. So I'd love to dive into that a little bit of like, what it looked like or the trend, like the shifts that have created and like those, I'm thinking it's those daily action decisions, right? That really support you guys with your mindset, with the relationship that you guys have built with money and contributed so much to what you have created with your life right now.
Yeah, well, when Flynn and I met, like he was a money spender and I was a money hoarder. And so we could not have been more opposite. And so we really had to get on the same page because you hear that statistic about so many divorces happen because of finance. And we literally, he's like, I want to go keep spending. And I'm like, we must hoard all the money. And so we have had to figure out how I need to relax and spend our money because there's no point dying the richest person in the graveyard. And he had to learn that, like, if you want to achieve things that are milestones, you can't just like spend it willy-nilly and then end up with nothing, right?
It's YOLO.
Yeah, he was living in the moment, and I was like always about there's got to be some goal I'm saving for. So I never got to enjoy the moment. So we've been able to blend that through something that we've ended up calling money dates. And how they first started happening was when we had our first baby. Every Sunday morning, we would sit together and we started a secret Instagram account at the time to track all of this. We set this goal, and the goal was we wanted to be free by the age of 40. We were both 31 at the time, and we thought if we can be financially independent by 40, we're going to win. So we used to sit there and he used to make all the Canva graphics and I used to make all the captions, and then we'd post like 6 posts every Sunday, like what our goals were, what we did, what we reinvested in. It was an anonymous account. And we built up a decent sized following on that. It was like 400 or 500 people considering nobody knew it existed. But we started building that up and we had these things and we just realized that every single time we got together, it was this open flow of conversation about money. And they ended up covering a couple things. We look at them now as like we have money maintenance dates where the whole point is being like, what have we been spending on? Let's track our savings. Let's track what's going on. Like, what is the data we need to be reviewing to see if we're on track? Then we ended up having these money date number 2 that we started developing once we started getting out of that 6 a.m. while the baby was asleep. We started going on these vision walks where we would just literally talk all about money, and we would just walk
Not just money, but like growth,
growth.
where we want to be.
Yeah. And just like how I was going to do in my business, what we were going to do to get to the next revenue level, how we were going to save up this much more, where we wanted to travel to. So we had the maintenance dates. We started doing the vision dates. And then we started adding in 2 other types of dates. The other one is looking at education, where we're like, what do we need to learn to fill the gaps between what we dreamed about and what we're putting on the spreadsheet, the money maintenance dates. And so this is where we would either spend time on YouTube or we'd be exploring, learning, buying a course or something like that to fill in the knowledge gaps. And the last type of money date we ended up having was strategy dates, where we're like looking at our portfolio. We're like, okay, we've got the dream, we've got the information. Now, what's the strategy to put that information into action? And so these conversations have evolved, and we are just, I always say, like, we listened to a podcast with Alex Hermosi a while ago, and he said the thing that makes him and his wife, Layla, their relationship so strong is that their relationship is based on 3 things. Most people have relationships that are based on interests. And we had that. We met at the gym. We have the interest thing. We like to hike. The second thing is, do you have overlapping values? Meaning we value freedom. We value contentment. We value health, right? that's where a lot of people stop. And that's why they struggle with their money when it comes to their relationship. The third one is your mission. Like, are you on the same vision and path with your partner? So we had the interest, we had the
Yes. I want to add the interest can change,
yeah.
Yeah.
right? Interest and values can change a little bit, but your mission has to be number one.
Yeah.
You guys has to stay.
Mm.
Yeah,
Big
and that's why
mission.
we always say like I don't think we've ever really disagreed on anything with money. And if we do, it's just like, okay, one person hasn't explained themselves quite enough to make it make sense. But yeah, we've always been what we think of just like in lockstep on everything. It's because it's so clear what we're doing this for. And, our next major milestone, we're looking at like, does this decision move us toward that next milestone or away? And when we're locked in on what that is, it's so much easier to be on the same
Yeah.
page.
Wow. Yeah, that clarity and the
Mhm.
simplicity of it, right?
Yeah.
Alex speaks a lot into that this year. Those are themes this year of clarity and simplicity. And, when you have that defined, like you said, it just weeds out everything else and it brings that alignment because is this serving us? Is this moving us forward or is it not? And I can see how that is incredibly valuable in making decisions easier in life in general, much less in wealth and in the wealth journey.
And
Yeah.
I think the FOMO piece, like I told, like this is one thing I've messaged back and forth with Flynn about it. Is like how do you work through that FOMO? Because yes, I definitely have not just the FOMO, but like you've got one life to live. Let's live it to the fullest, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that me personally has been oftentimes that there's that tug of war between okay the vision, what you can create, and also this in the moment. But when you get so crystal clear and when you really understand how money works, which is what, Tanessa and Carol have both really supported me in really understanding and Flynn as well, it really supports the shift in perspective of looking at things different, asking different questions, and being open to that, and really looking at how much does this mean in the moment, right? I think
Yeah.
those like sort of more the consumer or those so like in the moment kind of purchases, it's like, is this really going to move the vision forward or is it going to get you backwards when you're so crystal clear on what you want to go to? So I know that's really supported me, and I believe Flynn that kind of supported you too, right? It was like that clarity of where you're going and understanding. Okay, in this moment, I could yes, let's say go put it on the credit card, pay that 20% interest, or I can not do that and I save myself that 20% interest and I invest it. Now all of a sudden, it's creating more that it's one step forward to the freedom piece, right? But it's
Mhm.
really understanding that to really, especially again with that programming, and if you've lived a certain
Yeah.
way or made certain decisions for so long, I'm really curious. I know we touched a little bit on the beliefs, but I'm curious if there's any others that you guys were up against, right? Especially again, talking about old programming, right? That the way that you were raised and the way that the relationship of money was around you. Like, were there any other thoughts and beliefs that you really noticed that you either found always like came up again? I mean, of course, as like new level, new
The
devil, right?
hoarder spender. Yeah.
Yeah, but that you or that you really feel that have you've shifted, or like what's the conversation? I guess that's it. Like, what
Mhm.
were those beliefs and what's the new conversation, or what are you saying to yourself today that's also supported in changing how you're making those decisions and taking action on what you're creating?
Do you want to speak to your debt mindset, maybe?
Um, no, I was gonna talk about like being the black sheep,
Oh,
like so that's what I'm kind of thinking
yes,
because
that's a
like
good one.
because actually I got a lot of
Pushback.
pushback from my family, especially my family,
Mm.
because like
Oh,
because they grew up a certain way,
yeah.
like they didn't homeschool their kids. Um,
Debt was very normalized.
that was normal, like having a 10K debt is like normal. Like who would even one of my family members said, who doesn't have debt these days? It's like it's just such a normal thing to them. And
Yeah.
then for me, like I kind of want to change that, being so different. I kind of embrace it. I know it's so hard for other people because you want to fit in, you want to just go along with other people. But being a black sheep is kind of like our we thrive on it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Because he's gotten, and what we mean by that too is like we're choosing everything opposite the way everyone surrounding us is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Flynn especially, my family gave a little pushback, but now they just kind of are like whatever they do seems to be working for them. But Flynn's family, I think
Yeah.
that's a mindset thing. He had to really, he's gotten a lot of pushback, a lot of resistance, a lot of heavy
Also,
questioning.
yeah, so yeah, I had even like a talk with them, and like I really asked them, do you guys understand what I'm doing? So I think it's more like a
Mm.
they're just confused and they just really don't understand what was
Yeah.
happening. And then, when I showed them, here's what we're gonna do, here's our plan, and they're like, yeah, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because to them it just looks like, so wait a second, you sold your house, that's going backwards. You quit your job, going backwards. You're homeschooling your kids, how are they going to have any social skills? Like everything we're doing is
It's like it looks weird.
what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do in your life. And you know what I mean? And then you're going to go travel instead of live here away from family. Like everything
Yeah,
is backwards.
it
And
looks
so
terrible.
so I think that's one thing Flynn has learned is like, and this has been a recent lesson, is that wrapping people in on what you're doing.
I
And
love
having them,
that.
yeah, being like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe they're giving me pushback because they don't have to agree, but maybe they
Yeah.
just don't understand it. I think a lot of your experiences, they just
Yeah,
didn't
they just don't
understand.
understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think for me, the hardest thing, and I think still working through this, is like growing up with scarcity. Money doesn't grow on
Yeah.
trees. Like we had maybe one meal out per month, and me and my sister would share a meal. You know what I mean? It was
Mhm.
very
Frugal
much
living.
very frugal living. My parents are money hoarders as well. Like it's funny, we couldn't come from more
Yeah,
opposite
we're very
spectrums.
opposite. Yeah.
But one thing Flynn has had to teach me is to let go. Like
Mhm.
you have to
Mm.
enjoy your life. And especially when last July, when I decided to stop marketing the business, knowing that it would end up in the business winding down and making the decision to start living off of our dividends. Because since we've been investing in 2021, we have been reinvesting and compounding and
Mhm.
compounding. And that's why it grew so much.
Yeah.
And my brain is like, this isn't enough. But this whole time I look back, we were making 4,000 a month. I knew I was going to feel safe when we hit 6,000 a month.
Yeah.
Nope. When I got to 6,000 a month, it was 8,000 a month. We
Mhm.
crossed 8,000 a month a couple months ago. And you know what it is now? It's like, no, it's probably closer to 12. And I starting to really see that like I'm never getting off this ride. So I had to
Wow.
start like,
Yeah.
okay, we have started living off of half of our dividends last July. And I've had to really be like, it's okay because what were you saving it all for? The life you're living
Mm.
right now. Like
Yeah.
you were doing this and saving that all so you could travel and spend time with your family.
Mhm.
Can do that now. So you continuing down this road puts off what you can have now. And
Yeah.
it's not like we're blowing it all. We're still reinvesting half of it every month. But he has taught me so much that there are experiences in life worth spending on.
Yes.
It's balancing that with my ability to drive us forward has been a really cool marriage in our financial life of like the presence and the future. And I think
Mhm.
that's
Kind of
been a
mixing
cool
it
thing to
together.
let us
Yeah.
enjoy along the
Yeah.
ride. It's been cool.
I think that's so important to bring up because my husband and I were high achievers, and he was typical type A driven. He was an entrepreneur. He had a brilliant legal mind and business mind, but often it would be, would you spend time with me? No, that'll happen in another season of our life. Now's not the time. He didn't make it to that other season.
Mm.
He's
Oh,
not here. And so I think this is a healthy and necessary conversation about the present. We have the present, and being able to both increase your wealth, increase your finances, do things in a way that is different, and yet be able to enjoy life in the present is really important discussion.
Yeah, that same conversation has come up with us again very recently. It's been a very hot conversation around here. Is like, as we have been living out of a suitcase for going on 10 months now,
Yeah.
the conversation that has been coming up is like, it's got its challenges moving
Mhm.
from Airbnb to
Mhm.
Airbnb. And it would be really nice to be able to travel and come home to a landing pad, where your toothbrush is
Yeah.
in your cabinet, your clothes are in your closet, not being like, okay, back to the storage locker, everyone go change your clothes. Like, so we have
that's
been
tiring.
we've been having this conversation of like do we need a home base? And we started running the numbers. And if we decided to have a home base and somewhere we had as home when we came back to Vancouver, our travel would be limited to 1 to 2 months a year. And the conversation we had from that is like, well, Flynn and I are here. We are happy. We are healthy. Our kids are happy and healthy, and they want to spend time with us still. Like, we are still the coolest people in the world to them. And we know that won't be
Take
forever.
full advantage.
Right? And so, like, for us, we said, like, there will be decades ahead of us for us to settle down and have a home base again. We may not have this opportunity the way it presents us. Our parents are healthy. We don't need to be, you know what I mean? So as much as it is still that back and forth battle of like losing time with family, it's a whole drama in my heart. But we've chosen to travel. But the next vision up for us is to surpass that level where we can easily afford to have a home here in Vancouver that sits empty 6 months a year and continue to travel 6 months a year. And I think that's what's really inspired our lean back into the entrepreneurial space right now is like, let's have both. Why not? Like if we're ready to open and receive money, like the universe, when it knows we have the capacity to hold it, it'll send it our way. And it's been cool. It's been fun to work together on something again.
I think you hit on a really key point right there about I totally agree with you about having stability of, having a launch pad to take off from, because I've been in that place of living out of a suitcase and moving around, and so very much can relate to that. And then looking at it at where the advantages of it at this stage in your life, but the point that you are touching on right here is, oh shoot, I lost it. It was the
I
last
love that
thing
feeling.
you said. Yeah.
I was talking about the idea of that we're all here and we're healthy and everyone wants to spend time together. We may not have that. We can always rent.
Yeah, looking at the options that you have, but I know what it was. It was that the money comes to those who take care of it and who have the capacity for it. And when you demonstrate that, that's very attractive to the energy of money, finances, and wealth. And you touched on that. And I think that's really a key point. And did you consider that in your journey? Was there an awakening to that? Oh, we've got to have the ability to take care of money.
I think I don't know if we ever had that thought of like we need to take care of it, because I think it's always become such an identity piece with us, like because we built it together. But I don't know if do you want to touch on the universe is listening?
Yeah, so we always like to say things like, hey, I want this. Universe, if you're listening, I want this. And then we are always like, we're ready to receive this much thing. So like we truly believe in like the energy, like positive energy, and we try not to say like negative stuff. We try not to speak over ourselves any negative. And then if I do, she'll catch me like, oh, you said that, it might come true, right? So I'm like, oh, oops, right? So like we always want to enforce a lot of positivity in everything we say because it will happen. And I truly believe that.
We've had so many instances of where we just look at each other, but like the universe is taking orders right now. Like we will say something like, I think one of the I wrote an article on it. I wrote that there's a big question we ask ourselves is like, what don't we know right now that's going to change everything? And it's like it's never the things that you know
at the moment.
It's the stuff that you can't even see, you're not even looking for. So we're always asking like, what can't we see right now that's going to open the whole door in front of us? And we've had multiple experiences of that. Like even most recently, we were when our landlord decided to sell the house, and we're like, oh, this could be a year of being in limbo. Is the house going to sell? It's not. And we went on a hike. We're like, maybe we should just tell her we're out. We should just end the lease. Let's just go. And maybe this is it. Maybe we're going to travel. We're all fired up on our hike. And then literally knock, knock, knock on the door the next night. The house is sold. You guys have 8 weeks to be out. And I'm like, the universe is listening right now. And we always say we've had multiple times where we've had weeks where everything that we have put out there has come. And we're not very like spiritual woo-woo people, but like sometimes it's too eerie not to be like, Flynn, the universe is taking orders right now. You be careful. We be careful what we put out. And then we're like, while you're listening, if you could help us figure out this problem or this thing we're working on right now. And it's so interesting how I know it's a reticular activating system for happening for sure, but sometimes like sometimes it's unexplainable. It really is.
But it's something that you said there, and I think we've recorded a couple episodes like on that it's done, and we were just talking about the simplicity piece. And a common theme in all that is the trust and surrender and the ability to receive, because in those moments you are trusting and surrendering, right? Like you're not trying to be anxious and hold it all. Like there's a different energy into how that shows up. I mean, literally, was it yesterday? I texted you guys and I'm like, okay, something that you guys were saying, like, money can be made, like it just can. And all of a sudden there's like the solution today, right?
Yeah.
Because there's that flow of the reciprocity.
Yeah. Reciprocity.
And
yeah.
I know for myself for years, that was like, as much as I did all the money work and the mindset work, it finally dawned on me one day, what I hadn't been working on was my belief to receive. And once I started to really lean into that and, say like, I'm open to receive and working through any resistance that was coming up for me around receiving, that's when I noticed that things really started shifting. And that's what I'm hearing for you guys, right? Like there is, I mean, what I do love about you guys is it is a bit of a game in a positive way, right? You have fun with it, right? There's a lightness to it. There's joy to it. There's some playfulness in it. And a lot of times money, right? Wealth is actually quite a heavy topic. It's quite heavy. And like, you can, like, I even, as I say it, I'm like, I can
all the baggage and the emotions.
But the way that like I'll never forget, because I know this is like a really pivotal moment for you guys. Like I just went delete on the spreadsheet to see what would happen, right? It's that you've always embodied that playfulness all throughout, and what you've created is a representation of that. And I think, if there's one thing that the listener walks away with today, because I know there's been so much here, is how do you get to shift your relationship with money, with wealth, to look at it from a playful place, to step in the possibility, to be open to receive, right? To be curious about it, and to shift that heavy energy around this light playfulness of like, what could happen, right? And Carol and I have recorded episodes on this and talking about, again, it's that question, right? It's like, it's shifting the question, not like what could happen, but like what could happen, right? All right, universe, you're listening, let's take orders. Like there's just such a funness to it. And I will, because of also the neuroscience work and having been seeing you guys, I do so believe so much in that. That's contributed so much into what you guys have created, because it has been very light. You've been leading, like you've just been so vulnerable and honest, and just leading with your heart and just being so open, like this is what's possible. And because of that, this is what's been created. And when we can really shift that energy, I think for everybody and everyone listening, like this is possible for you too, right? It's just really looking at, what does your relationship really look like with money? What does your relationship look like with vision? And how much of the family and all of that's like contributing to your vision? What if you were just to surrender and ask yourself, what if? What could it look like? And allow yourself to dream for just a minute. Because I know that is that's so much was what supported us in like making the decision to go to Panama, right? I mean, Panama wasn't really on our radar until, of course, you guys went. You went with 2 kids similar age. And just it's that opening up the door of possibility of just allowing things to, I mean, okay, the word's coming to manifest. Unfold. Yeah. Like the word was coming to manifest, but unfold, right? In a light, trusting, surrendered way.
Yeah. You just said it. That one thing that I think is at the base of everything we have done, like, and I didn't realize this is what this was. This is another universe taking the orders thing. I was like, I wish I just had someone outside of my life to talk to about all of this. And a coach that I highly respect, very successful, is like, I'm offering up free 1-hour sessions. I was like, I will grab one of those. And I was struggling at that point with letting go of the business, because I was like, it's me, it's my identity. Yeah. What do I do? Like, I can't do, what are people going to think? Yeah. And he said, how did you know it was going to work when you sold your house and went in all on your investments? How did you know it was going to work when, gave me another example. And I said, really flippantly, I was like, because things always work out for us. Actually, that's not true. I can give you lots of examples of times things haven't worked out, but emotionally, it's very true. Things have always worked out for us. And so often when we are in a pickle, or like we can't decide something, or we're like, I don't know how we're going to come up with the extra, what was it, like 70 or 80 grand a year in order to fund all the things we want. It's okay. Things always have worked out for us. It'll work out. It will work out exactly how it's supposed to. And I think that underlying that is just a deep trust that we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And even if you have this, the worst case scenario is we have to go get jobs. Like if life never gets any better than this, we've already won. Like if life always was just this good, it's fantastic.
Wow.
And it's just that trust. Like it's just things have always worked out. So why wouldn't they?
Alex, Leanne, I'm thinking we definitely need to have a part 2 here. What do you like? I'm like, oh, I could just keep on with this conversation forever. That lightness and that trust. I'm like, I'm listening and being reminded of, the truth of that. And you mentioned not being very woo based, but the interesting thing about it with neuroscience, with quantum science, with all of the sciences, there's a scientific basis to everything that you're saying, and as well as a spiritual component, and how they meld and go hand in hand. So thank you
just fun.
so much. Thank you so much for being here. And as we wrap up, would you leave us with some words about being unleashed and unstoppable in our wealth, as well as let us know how we can get in touch with you and subscribe to the Freedom Diaries, which, by the way, we'll have in the show notes as well.
What is unleashed and unstoppable for you?
Just I guess for me, like I just love learning. Like I think I can unleash myself. I'll be unstoppable learning. I don't think I'll ever stop learning until I'm done, until I'm dead. So that's what I would do.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think for me, and it's interesting, Flynn asked me not long ago, like, what's your mission? Like, what's your life for? And I said, I want to live a life that's worth writing about. Not because I want to have something to write about, but because if you were to write the story of my life, it would be so interesting to read. And I think that's what inspires me to keep like finding the edges of my comfort. Because this travel life is not ever what you would have said would have been me. But I think for me, Unleashed and Unstoppable is like the freedom of having a life that is a real damn good story to read. But yeah. So, I mean, for me, my Freedom Diaries blog, it's, like I said, the link will be in, but it's tanessashears.substack.com. And I hang out on Instagram, mostly just stories at Tanessa Shears. Flynn?
Yeah, Chasing True Freedom for my Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah, and we have a website, chasingfreedomfamily.com.
Freedom Family is how, honestly, if you link chasingfreedomfamily.com, that'll get you everywhere you need to go. Flynn's YouTube channel, my diaries, our Instagrams. That's a good hub. So thank you for saying
that. Into your launch, I know that you would have had your launch, but is there a way to get into that, or that the listener can dive into what you're teaching with your launch right now?
Yes. So we took everything that we've learned in this now coming up 5 years of figuring all this out in the pieces and the trial and error, and we put it into a challenge. The whole point of the challenge is to teach you how to make your first $100 in monthly dividend income. Not so that you stop at 100, because if you know how to do all the clicks and you understand what you're clicking on and what you're investing in, it's super easy to then take that to 1,000 a month, 5,000 a month and beyond. And so we're basically giving everything from, you're basically getting our brains, how we see the world, our mindset, the visioning process, the researching process, the investing process to get you freedom. And freedom doesn't have to look like us and traveling the world and living out of a suitcase. Freedom for you could be, we get all our travel paid for every year. Oh, there's an extra source of income that's not just relying on my job. The house is paid for with this, whatever it be. We really want to teach people how to create freedom on their own terms and be able to have that ability to be work optional. And so we're teaching that it's not a live challenge. So it's not like you missed the start of it. It's just a community that has support, that is built with videos that you can watch. You can do it at 2 a.m, take 6 weeks, take 5 months, take 5 days. But the content is there to be able to get you from, I know nothing about any of what you just said, to like, I just got my first dividend payment. This is so going to happen for me.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's called the Cash Flow Investor Challenge. And that you can find that on our Chasing Freedom Family website.
Okay. chasingfreedomfamily.com.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
No
Oh,
problem.
thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
So much.
Thank you for the introduction, Alex Leanne. And I know that you guys are just going to continue to do amazing things. It's exciting to see. And, the impact, the benefit that you're having for people, the greater, higher purpose than just yourselves and your own family is really exciting. And just thank you again for being here.
Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks to listener for jumping in and learning more about how you can create that additional income now. And you don't need to wait until retirement to start living your life. You can start living it today. So thanks for tuning in to another episode. Thanks so much to Tanessa and Flynn, and we'll see you next Thursday. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.